Welcome to the panel discussion on investing in Jamaica's cannabis industry as part of the Explore Do Business Jamaica Investment Conference 2021. I am Conrad Robinson, Manager, JAMPRO Western Regional Office, and joining me today on this discussion as we explore investing in Jamaica's cannabis industry are Alexandra Chong and Balram Vaswani. Kindly allow me to introduce you to Alexandra. Alexandra is the founder and CEO of JACANA, Jamaica's premier cannabis brand. JACANA cultivates, develops, and distributes certified medical cannabis and hemp products, both domestically and internationally. Prior to JACANA, Alexandra founded Lulu, an innovative app for young women. And at its peak, the Lulu app was installed on the phone of 1 in every 4 US college women. The New York Times noted that Alexandra started a Take Back the Internet movement for young women. In 2016, Lulu was acquired. With Business Insider, Adweek, WSJ, and the New York Times recognizing Alexandra as one of the top entrepreneurs globally. She holds a BSc and an LLB from the London School of Economics and Political Science. Alexandra is a proud Jamaican, having played tennis for Jamaica at the Federation Cup and Central American and Caribbean Games. Thank you so very much, Alexandra, for joining us today. I will now introduce Balram. Balram Vaswani is Chairman and Chief Ganja Officer, I like that, of Kaya. Balram has a well-rounded portfolio that highlighted by his founding of Kaya, the parent company of Kaya Farms, Kaya Herb House, Kaya Spa, Kaya Cafe, and Kaya Tours. He also has his hand in research through UTEC Ganja Lab, an R&D firm focused on cannabis cultivation, processing, and manufacturing, as well as the therapeutic aspect of the plant. You know, having read that, Balram, I feel like saying we have to have Kaya now. A famous line from that Bob Marley song. So participants, we have 2 experts engaging us today, and I'm so very happy to be your chairperson for this fireside chat. But before we begin, kindly allow me to give you an overview of what this discussion is going to be about. So the global cannabis industry has been steeped in challenges, yet there has been a growing trend towards the expansion of the industry, which has also been witnessed in Jamaica. The panelists, they will speak to their experiences and specifically why, despite the challenges, they remain committed and confident in Jamaica cannabis industry and where they see the industry going. JAMPRO will give the public sector perspective and the trends that they have witnessed in the growth of the industry. So thank you again, panelists, and thank you again, participants, for joining us today. I will start with Alexandra. Alexandra, could you tell us a little bit about JACANA, what they do, the products, and the locations of your company?
Thanks so much, Conrad. It's great to be here. So JACANA was founded really at the end of 2017, early 2018. We are one of the leading medical cannabis companies here in Jamaica. We really believe in creating a collection of brands. We have sort of 3 main pillars of brands currently to date. We have the JACANA line, which is our fine cannabis line. We have the original line, which is a flower line, which is really geared towards flower consumers to make it very affordable, accessible, and was really targeted to give it to the Jamaican population primarily initially. And then we have a wellness brand line, so JACANA Wellness, where we produce an array of hemp-based CBD products.
Oh, nice. And where are you located here in Jamaica?
So we have our main facility. So we're vertically integrated, as you mentioned earlier. So we grow, we cultivate, we manufacture, we formulate. We have an on-site laboratory where we test all of our products to make sure that they meet the highest international standard specs that we found outside. So it is the Jamaican the Jamaican standard plus high international standards, as we've seen in the United States and in Europe. And that is our central laboratory and central facility and growing facility, which is in St. Anne. And then
Okay.
in Kingston, we host 3 dispensaries, one in Manor Park, one in Portmore, and recently New Kingston. We are opening our 4th location geared towards the tourist market in Ocherius in the Island Village Shopping Center come this December. As tourism has, we're coming back out of the pandemic and tourism has come back to Jamaica, we feel like it's the right time to expand on the North Coast.
Absolutely.
Doing that in short order. And then our wellness products are found across spas, gift shops. Most of the major hotel chains on the island carry that line. And then also internationally, the wellness products are found. And then, our THC medical cannabis products, primarily here in Jamaica. We'll get on to some of the challenges that we face.
Yes.
We will be entering the European market probably within the next 3 to 4 months.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Alexandra. Balram, I'm going to ask you the same question. Could you tell us a little about Kaya, what it is that you guys do and the products and your locations as well?
Yeah, well, Kaya's really been here from 2015. We were kind of the foundation to the pillars of like moving from research to actually getting the licenses and working through that format. So, leading from R&D from University of Technology, having the first legal sales, harvest and processing and working throughout the cups and, the different parties getting involved. We got our first cultivation license, at the end of 2017, and we had our first legal sale at our retail herb house on March 10, 2018, which was in Ocherius in Drexel, where I am now. Then we opened our second location in Falmouth, directly across from the cruise ship pier. And then we did our 3rd location in Kingston, just right in that golden triangle next door to Bob's house, Governor General TGI, right in that little corner.
Yes.
And we have been working on our Montego Bay location and also our 3rd-party vendors across Jamaica, which we're partnering in the grill and stuff like that. And how do you kind of pivot in this, this new market, which is not really predominantly tourist, but actually predominantly local. We opened last year, December, in Uruguay, Punta del Este. And we have our other 2 locations in Punta del Este to be opened, one more in Christmas and the next one in Q1 2022.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Balram. So let me ask you guys this question, because I think this is one of the questions that our participants would like to hear. Why did you decide to enter the industry when you did? And I'll start with you, Alexandra.
Sure. So look, for me, I'm an entrepreneur at the heart of it. And, I really like to start businesses that I truly believe in. Medical cannabis has been something that, I believed in for a long time. My husband and I started investing in the space in 2015, 2016 in the United States. And, being Jamaican, I always, there was always this, association with cannabis when I would travel abroad and Ganja and, people asking me questions. And the reality is that this is the spiritual home of cannabis. And, I really believe that Jamaica has a very strong role to play on the international stage when it comes to cannabis. I think the world is looking for, really high quality product and the very best that Jamaica has to offer in terms of brands to be able to sell them in their markets in the United States, in Canada and other places. You speak to anyone outside of Jamaica and they're excited to see Jamaican cannabis on the shelves. So it's something I believe in. I think definitely an underestimation about, the journey that we would undertake and what that was going to mean. But, I believe in Jamaican cannabis. I believe in what it means for Jamaica. And I believe it has a rightful, strong position to hold internationally. And, at JACANA, we're determined to make sure that we put our best foot forward, waving the Jamaican flag. And we believe that, this is a long-term game, not a short-term win. We've seen various cycles of of the so-called cannabis bubble over the years as deregulation started to happen. And fundamentally, I think that in 2015 we started to see a change in our government and the Jamaican national position. And really, it was becoming clear that in 2017, Jamaica was, ready to start creating licensed, licensed providers, and was serious about entering the stage. So we entered around that time.
Okay, great. I mean, so I guess, I could definitely call you a cannapreneur. The fact that you have, branched off into so many different aspects of the cannabis industry. You did mention though that, originally one of the things that brought you to it would be the fact that Jamaica, is cannabis or ganja is a spiritual home is Jamaica. I mean, do you think that as a country you're doing enough to take advantage of that connection?
No, we're not. We're definitely not yet. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Fundamentally, we have a very complicated history with ganja here. There's the spirituality element of a sacrament for the Rastafarian community. There's a very heavy drug past with the United States that caused the Jamaican economy and the relationships with the U.S., our main trading partner, a lot of friction. It was demonized all over the world, but in Jamaica primarily as something that was sort of for whatless people. And there was a lack of education around the benefits of cannabis. And so just like many parts of the world, we're coming out of stigma, but stigma still exists. And you have to really understand the benefits of cannabis. You have to understand the benefits of legalization and what that does to not just societies but also economies, right? And the economic benefit as well as the societal benefit of legalizing. So it's something that I believe it's not just a Jamaican challenge, it's a global challenge. I was having this conversation recently with a friend, and it's going to take some time for stigma to be relaxed. But one has to continue to be educated. And I think that's one of the things that it's sort of a duty for all of us in the industry. And frankly, in government as well as the private sector, to truly take the time to understand what it is cannabis provides, why people use it, what does it mean, what are the benefits of legalization, and what are the benefits of a thriving ganja industry for Jamaica. And I think once they do, they come around quite quickly.
No, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, I think that the opportunities for cannabis here in Jamaica are excellent. Balram, I'm going to throw it to you right now. I mean, why did you guys decide to enter this sector? What were some of the drivers for you?
I mean, obviously my path is a little different, and anybody that knows me knows I'm a herbalist. I've been a herbalist that from the teens, and I'd be able, and one of those those stigmas that they say those kids don't get good grades. Not true, because I smoked herb. I smoked a lot of herb, and I had the best grades. I graduated high school at 16. I went to university going at 16, turning 17. Transcend that, work in investment banking, smoking, going through all of these different stages in life. You have to break the stigmas by being able to perform. You can't be a couch potato. But what really drove me to it was living in Denver, and I went there to launch the Marley coffee brand for the Marley family. During that, I got to witness medical going to recreational, watching that, thinking, as we're all herbalists and stuff in Jamaica, and we're on the quest for the best, and we always say we have the best, and you go to this farmer and that farmer and whatever it is. But you take the realistic approach to what this means as a business. It's a little different from just growing weed in the grill, or growing weed just outdoor, and seeing what the regulation is, but seeing what the opportunity is for every single part of the sector. Not only the parts that we touch, from the basic stuff of buying nutrients, the evergrows and stuff like that, and the Isratex of this world, but I'm talking the plumbers, I'm talking the electricians, I'm talking the people that build our facilities, our multi-million-dollar facilities across the board. Seeing that and being able to lobby and learning from Colorado, bringing it back to Jamaica, and those communities. How could Jamaica not be a part of, we're one of the mega industry, which is India, Thailand, Jamaica, Colombia, these are countries that land races form from. So how could the history of Jamaica, like not be protected, that we don't have a Jamaican brand like Jamaica Blue Mountain Coffee, that Jamaica, Ganja does not stand up. But, you have to take the sides of it. We decriminalized weed, right, 6 years ago, right? During that, the Dangerous Act has not changed. And during this process, there's still an illicit trade. So although we're spending all the money in the regulatory issues and being, like if we're going to make it real, you have to balance the equation between what the illicit trade and the regulated trade is. And it's just something that would help, benefit more industries, and it turn into what a KFC looks like today, of being more of a commodity and access to patients.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that it's a work in progress. And I think that although the progress may be slow, I think that we will eventually get there. And that's why we appreciate people like yourself and Alexandra, because you are in it and you're sticking to it. And that leads me to my next question. And I'll start with you, Balram. How has growth been going for you in the sector? I know you've started the business and you have a number of different iron in the fire, so to speak. How has it been going since you began?
No, it's been a learning curve, because it's different. It's not similar directly to Canada. It's not similar directly to Colorado, and Jamaica has its own rules. So, we might just have a little extra regulatory approach just for the protection of being able to handle this product. In Denver, I never had to have a police move from facility to facility and have, that type of transaction to facilitate them part of each move. And, Jamaica taking that stance, there is a cost associated with that. And all of these costs add up. You have childproof package and you have this. And when you look at the final product of the actual cost, you're spending so much on to make it regulatory approved that, you have to start to wonder, where is the difference and how is this going to connect? And really what it is that you got to stick to it like any business. KFC didn't come to 24 stores overnight. They got to high different, it went to bus locations, stuff like that. We have to start in tourist locations, which can afford the model, and then see how we can approach that it's all accessible to all Jamaicans. So the price points have to be affordable, and you have to find the right model for each different parish as you go from parish to parish. So, I just think it's going to take, it's understandable. We've done pretty well. We've been able to last. We never closed our one door during the pandemic. We maintained a policy of opening Monday to Sunday whenever we could. And we stayed through. We took the hits as we again, and you learn and you grow. You start to realize, what's important, what's not. And most importantly, what does it look like when tourists move up from 30, 40, 60%, 80, and right back to next year at 100%? What does that look like? And plus 100. I think that's where we have to focus.
And I'm happy that you're able to bring that perspective, because I think sometimes people look at a sector like the cannabis sector and their view is somewhat short term. But this is something that you have to be in it for the long haul. You have to grow with this sector. As we improve our regulatory issues around, functioning within the cannabis space, I think more and more cannapreneurs are going to find that it is a lucrative business to get involved in. So pioneers like yourself and Alexandra, and I'm turning to Alexandra right now because I want to ask her the same question as well. Since she began.
A ganjapreneur.
A ganjapreneur. A ganjapreneur. Yeah, man, I hear you. Alexandra, how has it been for you since you began?
Wow, it's been a hell of a journey. I often say I could have started a few companies by now. No, look, it's certainly, it's not for the faint-hearted. Bali and I, we've been around for a while. Bali a few more years longer than me, and we've seen lots of people come and go. Lots of companies fly by the night. People that think it's a get-rich-quick game. Watching public stocks rising in Canada and watching Canadian companies spray money and watching all sorts of things happen over the years. And there was a sense that, of urgency, back in 2017, it was like, oh, we better start to get into this game now. It's all starting to happen. And yet once you're in it, you realize, was I early? Oh yeah, I was really early. We were really early, and the truth is that you really have to believe, right? You have to believe fundamentally in what you're building. Like, as Bali said, like any good entrepreneur, you have to believe in the products that you're creating. You have to believe in the industry. And you have to be able to ride with the punches, and there are a lot of them, and it's a hell of a roller coaster ride. Because, you know, as entrepreneurs, like, of course, we're starting businesses and we're figuring that out, but the regulator is essentially a startup, right? And it's not just in Jamaica, you know, the regulator all over the world has been a startup.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
new industry. You know, they're like, do we regulate it like alcohol? Do we regulate it as a medicine? Do we regulate it? You know, there's a lot of complexities.
Yes.
You know, and I've always sort of remained very sympathetic with our regulator, despite the fact that there's lots of things about the CLA that I'd love to see change. But sympathetic in that it's not an easy job, right? I wouldn't want to be in those shoes. It's challenging. But you've got to keep the industry going, and you've got to keep it alive, and you've got to make sure that, you know, companies like JACANA, like Kaya, like others have, you know, the support to say that, like, we're still behind this. And, you know, you can't ignore what's going on in the United States, right? It's the largest cannabis industry that is booming. That, you know, the revenue numbers from those retail dispensaries in the US are phenomenal. And it has just been growing and growing and growing. And so, you know, you see that as an opportunity. You see where growth is, and it's real. It's not a fake, you know, bump in stock on a public company in Canada. There's real businesses that are being built. And you have to, you know, say, is that what we want to see in Jamaica? And I think a lot of people are starting to see that. You know, it has been challenging understanding what consumers want. You know, our approach at JACANA has been to help demystify cannabis as much as possible. You know, if you look at our packaging and our design and the categories, you know, we've used science to really try to break down what, you know, what a strain is. You know, what does, you know, what is herb stallion? Well, it's, you know, this much THC, and it's going to make you feel you know, like joyful, or, you know, it's going to help with, you know, back pain or whatever, you know, the specific reason you are. So we've been really trying to make it more, you know, mainstream, so to speak, because it, you know, it is an industry that has been sitting, it is new, right? It's nascent, and it's been sitting in the dark ages for a really, really long time. And so
and I think that you know, people like yourself and Bali, I mean, you know, given not just your profile within the society, but the truth is that you have been sticking to it, and you have been improving the products as you go along, the research and the development that goes into that. And I just read recently that it would appear that investors still see the sector here in Jamaica as investable. As was reported in the papers only a few days ago, a US investor pumped what, 15 million US dollars in a particular company. That's 2.3 billion Jamaican dollars. You know, of course, primarily they want to create a type of a one-stop shop facility where, you know, it's from cultivation to extraction. You know, and they're focusing on the CBD aspect of things. You know, do you think that it is an investable sector here in Jamaica?
Yeah, I mean, 100%, right? Look, look, you're touching upon it. You have comparables across the world. You have different markets. You know, Alexandra spoke about the US. You know, you didn't speak about Canada. What about, you know, what about Canada? You know, you're starting to see Thailand open up. You're starting to see, you know, like these countries, and it's not only for medical, it's recreational, right? Jamaica, we've surpassed, and we're, you know, we're at certain categories. But if you look at 35% to 45% of revenues from any other dispensary that you have to benchmark to raise money has edibles as a class, right? And all of those edibles in all of those states are not FDA approved. Has a warning on the label that it says not approved by the FDA, and, you know, and et cetera, and you have a certain warnings. We're moving that way, but you know, 3 years later, you're looking at where 45% of it is, and you talk about the elderly, the young people coming into the market. It's not typical smokers. The typical smokers of the hippies and that kind of market is not really for it. Right now, when you wake up in the morning, you have a cup of coffee, you're not having a cup of coffee to go to bed. You wake up in the morning to have an espresso, to have a macchiato, to have a little buzz. The same reason, if I don't want to have caffeine every day, why couldn't I pick up my sativa pen and do it the same way? You're going to find out the same thing as edibles come online in the consumer beverage line. And you see companies like Red Stripe and Diageo and these different companies start to look at it and say, what is it going to be like? Because when I go out at night, if I smoke a joint, I'm drinking 2 less drinks. And the more I can feel the same way, it's the feeling that I want to feel and the spend and the energy and everything else that goes with it. So you're going to find a correlation between, you know, drinking and the beverage companies, and you're going to start to see a difference of saying, okay, no, we're a part of this market and it should be inclusive. When would be the day that we have, you know, a CBD red stripe? You know, when is going to be the day that thing wakes up? When is going to be the day that Jamaica producer says, we're going to do this? And you start to look at real conglomerates around Jamaica, and then you know, you have to let the elephant out in the room. Why are none of these companies coming into it, and why is it not where you're jumping on board yet? Because there's no prospectus coming from your bank that can make it easy for you because of banking. But same thing to like Alexandra, there are fundamental changes that are happening in the US, and we've seen it go to the lowest end, and you're starting to see it going up. And the possibility of banking and federal regulations are, you know, in the limelight, and it's not this mystique in a Star Wars film. It is actually right there in the forefront. The valuation of any company overnight of being present and being operational and doing business and going through the pain that we go through for 5, 7 years or 10 years will be worth it. Now, who are the people, you know, it's, you know, you have to bet on the industry, you have to build it. You know, look at the panel we have today. You have 2 Jamaican companies on your panel within a JAMPRO event of JAMPRO Invest, where, you know, it's sad to say, but we had 4 of the biggest Canadian, you know, companies that came to Jamaica, had a bad experience, could not compete or could not last against the best Jamaican, and had to step away. You know, we know what we're doing here. We know how to operate in a third world country. We know how to operate in Caribbean countries. And I promise you, we'll make money, and any investor that invests will see multiples on their money compared to any other industry that's out there.
I'm happy you said that, and I'm going to ask Alexandra to weigh in here as well. I mean, so I know that there are challenges in the sector. I know that there are some things that we need to deal with. There are some hurdles that we need to get over. But as far as the future outlook of the sector is concerned, where are some of the areas do you see opportunities lie for us as a country? I know that we're doing some things around research and development and so on. But as we look to the future, what are some of the areas that you think that we should be focusing on as a country? So Alexandra can start, and then we get back to you, Balram, on it.
Sure.
Look, you know, I think that we should focus on the areas that we're good at, right? And you know, I think there's still work to be done there, but we should absolutely focus on areas that we're good at. And I think around, you know, personally, I'd like to see us really hone in and get a little bit more formal in protecting Jamaican cannabis, protecting whether it's geographical indicators, just protecting the it produced in Jamaica, because you know, as long as the road may feel ahead of us, you know, in this industry, it's also quite quickly coming. And you know, we've seen companies try to leverage the Jamaican name, you know, Marley Naturals, and you know, try to leverage that into the United States, but it's not authentic, right? To truly be authentically Jamaican, you need to be producing in Jamaica, right? The product needs to have a Jamaican element to really back it and be behind it. And we're living in a world where consumers are not stupid, right? We have the internet now. They're much more engaged in, you know, quality of product. You know, we produce organic cannabis. We produce it in a sustainable way. These are qualities that we believe consumers care about. And fundamentally, I think it's important that, you know, that Jamaica starts to protect that which it is valuable, right? And that is Jamaican ganja produced in Jamaica, just like the Champagne region did for the producers there. And I think that that's something that, you know, as entrepreneurs and businesses, we're going to continue to strive ahead, but we need that protection and that support. I think another thing is we need to be brave, right? You know, there's an element of bravery that needs to happen now. You know, you've watched, as Bali said, like countries legalizing not just medical, but recreational, right? You know, sandwiched around the United States is Canada, that's recreationally legal, Mexico, that also passed. You know, you've got Belgium and Uruguay and many other countries that are going in that way. You know, and I know there's an argument it's a violation of international treaty, but there's many countries that are doing that. And, you know, United States is certainly one of those places. So we have to be brave, and we have to call a spade and say, I'm to legalize. You know, that is the direction that is going to make a lot of things easy. But as Bali said, there is an elephant in the room. Sounds like I might have it on. Yeah. There is the elephant in the room, which is banking. And it's not really in the control until we see movement that happens in the US. And I think we're starting to see that, as he mentioned. So, we know that that is one of the dominoes that's going to make a lot of investors more comfortable. And at that point, money will flow, not just from corporates, but from privates, from venture, from private equity. They're just going to get a lot more comfortable. And they've been waiting in the wings. I think it's the brave investors and entrepreneurs that have come out early that will see those benefits and have said, I believe in this industry, I believe in these entrepreneurs, I believe in this company, and I'm going to back it early, and I'm going to take advantage of what that means to invest early. And that takes an element of bravery. I don't believe that we've seen today, and Bali, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've seen the federal government make an example of any investor who's invested in the space, and said, hey, can't do that, and we're going to freeze all your assets. It's never happened. And billions has been invested in this space to date across the world. So I think it is for the brave to invest now, or wait when everybody starts jumping in.
Yeah. You know what? I'm happy that we're having this conversation, because I was just thinking about it while you were talking about how we need to protect the Jamaican brand and so on. And it's not as though we have not done it before. We have done it with our Blue Mountain coffee, right? So we can do the same thing with our Ganja. And so Balram, back to you. I mean, how do you see the future? Where are the opportunities? How do you feel about the future as far as the cannabis sector is concerned?
I mean, you have to, the industry is weighted on players. Being the leading player in the market, and putting the pain in investment, you have to see what the finish line looks like. What does the finish line look like? What is the comparables of you and the investors that invest in you, and what do you want to achieve? For us to continue, of this, it's going to take a pattern. We're the only company 5 years audited with Ganja. We had the first filings of the first trademark with the word Ganja in Jamaica. You start looking on protection of IPs, of having 22 different IPs. You start doing a franchise where you can take your brand outside of Jamaica to Uruguay and open your brand, and it stands and does well during the pandemic. And then you start looking, and there is value outside of the typical weed play. If you look at my business, and I have a retail complex from my non-medicinal to my medicinal areas to my franchise to my online, my pillar is not broken by one thing. And that's why the pandemic didn't have a hit on me like how it had in different industries. So you have to see there is value. And with this, we just announced our JV, which, our future is looking at going onto the US market, which is legal. And from the US market to cross list into the Canadian market, that doing a dual listing. By doing that, we give the opportunity, because of the rules between Jamaica, to come back to Jamaica, where you can go to Mayberry or you could go to GMMB and you can buy into the dual exchange. And my 18-month plan, which I'm already on, will complete that proposition, or it could be less. So while that's going on and building out Jamaica and the Caribbean and South America, the brand is applicable in the US and other countries through that model. But now we have a greater room for expansion. How many companies didn't do well? How many farms are going to go bust?
Right.
How many new retail locations are going to open up? Which companies are going to partner and merge versus trying to compete against a different player? Which ones? All of these questions are going to start coming into the open, as the blood starts to run into the market. But there is a real business, and you got to stick to it. But having access to the capital market and the pool out there to grow, as you want to grow projects, because just as quick as I did weed, my shareholders are saying, Bali, how much time are you dedicating to mushrooms? That's a legal commodity that all the other ones are going. So weed was the sexiest girl in the room a few years ago. Right now there's going to be a different one. You have to have a balanced portfolio, but this is all third wave new industries that are all going to come out to it. The minute that we could do a partnership of that drink or that stuff that could be exported to 164 countries, you're talking real money. Distributions are in place. So stick, like, as you said, focus on what you can do, focus what you don't try to take on the whole part. There is so many, there's so many products that you could do, from chocolates to beverages to CBD, not going THC, variety of patches, the market's completely open. We haven't even touched, not even 25.
I agree with you 100%, Bali. And, I've heard the word the elephant in the room mentioned a couple of times, and we're getting ready to wrap. But I would love to hear from you guys. how it is that you're dealing with the banking challenges associated with the sector.
I mean, banking is just like that. I mean, it's a fragile situation. We cannot bank anything to do with anything marijuana related. That's completely illegal. You cannot deposit, you cannot do any banking and stuff like that. Our non-medicinal entities, t-shirts, pizzas, anything is a different thing. Any bank will touch any of those entities or normal operating business that operate in the normal rules that follow every single rule. But you start to you deal with a lot of cash. And the fact that we're growing so fast, we use our cash, thank God. So we're building constantly, we're building out our farms, and expansion is doing it, but there's going to be a certain time, there's going to be a surplus of revenue surplus, and we're hoping the banking regulations and the digital currency and the pilot projects being done right now will facilitate us to do transactions, at least in Jamaican dollars, if not US dollars.
Yeah, and I suspect that they are working on it, the authorities are working on it. Alexandra, what has your experience been in that area?
Yeah, not dissimilarly. Like, as Bali said, like we're in a growth phase. And our growth phase obviously is in medical cannabis, but as well in on the hemp side, which is a lot easier to deal with, and accessories. So we're in that phase now. And again, it's about being creative with regards to structures, as creative as you can be. It makes life a lot harder on a finance team, but you walk the lines that you can walk, and then it all kind of works out. I mean, it's going to be interesting now that we're, our 2022 growth plan is continuing here in Jamaica, but really laser focused now in the United States, as well as Europe. And so, we have to be cognizant of, not spreading ourselves too thinly, because, there are lots of opportunities. And certainly, you can't take everything on yourself, right? And so finding the right partners is a really big deal for us, and being really smart about investment partners, international partners that believe in the vision that we have. And not compromising on quality. We're really committed to producing the finest quality cannabis, and that's going to need to hold true to any partner that we work with. So it's a journey, but it's a journey we continue to be really excited about.
And I'm happy that you're on that journey. And the last question I have for you guys is this: what would you say to an investor that is looking at Jamaica's cannabis industry right now? I mean, would you say Jamaica is investable? Would you encourage them to come to Jamaica and get involved in the sector?
Yeah, look, I mean, absolutely. I think just like any investment, you've got to
have a more mature market. You can see years of actual data. Sorry about.
Hi there. Sorry.
Yes, I'm not sure what just took place, but you were saying, Alexandra, yes,
Conrad,
you would be happy.
Yeah, I was saying that, just like any investment, I think first you have to believe in the sector.
Conrad,
you're sector going to be big.
I can't.
And if you're able to answer that, then that is, that's a tick in the box. We believe in the sector. The sector is proven to be big in other markets. Do you believe that Jamaican cannabis has a rightful place? Absolutely. I think
Absolutely.
you're living under a rock if you don't recognize that. And then do you believe in the entrepreneur and the team, right? Because my experience as an entrepreneur and as an investor, it's all about the people and the people who you're backing. And do you believe that they have what it takes? And do they have the experience? So I think if you can do all those three things, then yeah, this is an absolutely great opportunity to invest. And there are other areas, not just brand building, but Jamaica needs more labs. Jamaica needs more manufacturing in this space. So no, there's opportunity. Absolutely, it is a small island. Like, make no mistake, it does get a little bit crowded. So but I think that there's still Greenland.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alexandra. Bale, I'm not sure if you were hearing us earlier, but the questions that I was raising was, what would you say to investors that are looking at Jamaica's cannabis industry? Would you encourage them to invest in Jamaica? Yeah,
I mean, I'd be careful. I mean, there's enough data in the market that you could see what has happened over the last 3 years. There's enough, comparables. There's enough stories, and do your due diligence as any investor would do. But I would say, And if you pick the right horses, you could win, you know, and, you know, there are lots of innovation in terms of investments that are in the auxiliary businesses on the side that are extremely ripe and not mature yet. And the edibles line that I said, all the various SKUs on there is completely open. So any investment in terms of that line and that direction for next year, I think would be helpful. But I think we're still at an early stage.
Thank you so much, Balram. Alexandra, I really want to thank you guys for joining us this today in our fireside chat and investing in Jamaica's cannabis industry. And it was really a pleasure, leading this discussion with you guys. And I'm sure our participants are going to be the beneficiaries of your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience. And we look forward to the continued growth of your companies, JACANA and Kaya. Thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.